So Trump's economic policies are working. They're working a little bit so far. The critics of Trump's tariffs policies, Trump wanted reciprocal tariffs because other countries had tariffs on our goods. We couldn't get into their markets. Other countries wanted to protect their industries because they don't want to be competitive, because the so-called leaders in those countries, they wanted their expanded government and tax revenue. They wanted that leverage. They wanted that power. That's why they didn't want their tariffs to go to zero. Trump is forcing their hand. They're saying, okay, well, you either cut your tariffs to zero or we'll continue to have our tariffs on you as well. And as a result, as far as the G7 economies, the 7 biggest economies, the other 6, those economies are faltering. Their GDPs have decreased. They have, despite the fact that they're increasing the government sectors, because that's what Keynesians do when their economies start to falter. They increase government spending. More on that in a minute. Our economy out of the G7 is the only one that shows any kind of growth at all. Our debt had actually decreased slightly, and our debt to GDP ratio has also decreased because our GDP has actually risen just a little bit. Our debt to GDP ratio is something like 120%. It's improved by like a tiny margin. Now, normally I wouldn't call that a victory, but in the context of what we've seen in the past, the government debt exploding, our GDP not keeping up with that, that kind of result would be considered a victory. Really, we need to go a lot further than that. I would like to see Trump do something with the Federal Reserve, like audit it, reduce its power, get rid of it eventually. Because that's the source of a lot of our problems. Companies like BlackRock, for example, or it's called State Street now. Companies like that can only exist when you have a central bank that's printing a bunch of funny money. But anyway, that aside. The other countries, they are doing the government spending thing. That, by the way, is what the critics of the tariffs here in the United States, when you had Trump's critics, they were saying that our economy will collapse because of the tariffs. They're Keynesians also. Keynesianism is a bunch of contrived bullshit. It's this idea that people are not smart enough to be able to direct themselves in their own economic activity, and you need the government to step in to essentially force their hand to do spending. Increase government payrolls, you increase the public sector, and that will lower your unemployment rate, cause people to spend. But in reality, what it does is it sucks the productive capacity in the private sector and puts it in a place where it's bureaucratic and inefficient and not nearly as productive, right? Because government just does not work as well as the private sector, bottom line. So yeah, Trump's economy is a little bit better. It could be better yet. It could be great if we just abolish the Federal Reserve and the income tax, which is something I think Trump said that he wanted to do, but easier said than done, right? So yeah, we're okay for now. Now there are some sectors of the manufacturing of the industrial manufacturing base that has gotten hurt because of the tariffs, because some supply chain steps, they just moved to other places where they don't have to incur the tariff. So there are some areas that our economy has taken a hit. But in the long run, this is something that was long overdue. We absolutely needed to do reciprocal tariffs because these other countries, they are protecting their manufacturing bases artificially. And these leaders, so-called leaders in these other countries, are gaining power, unearned power because of that. We absolutely need to make trade fair so that everybody could be more productive and more competitive.